I have been working with Oxyfuel. Oxyfuel particularly, I've been working in the area for 30 years, but that was on fuel saving. And Oxyfuel came to me as a method as fuel saving because it's a more efficient burn. But now I'm looking at it as a way of sequestrating CO2, so it's a spin-off from fuel saving.
So oxyfuel combustion burns fossil fuels in pure oxygen instead of air. Steam is generated and can be used to power turbines and make electricity, or compressed and turned back to water. The carbon dioxide and water vapor is then recirculated to control the boiler temperature and cooled, leaving the captured CO2 to be compressed and dehydrated, ready for transport and storage, creating a carbon neutral possibility for using fossil fuels.
Well, the problems that are faced by not using fossil fuels are just that there isn't any viable 24/7, and that's a big thing. 24/7 alternative. All the renewable things like wind and sun have got potential, and they are producing cheaper energy than fossil fuels, but their big problem is the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine. The exception to that is tidal, which is 24/7, but it's very underdeveloped compared to the other two at the moment. And then of course there's nuclear power, which, although fine and I believe in, does face problems from the environmental movements to do with what do you do with the waste. Now that's arguably solved, you can recycle the waste these days. So that could be the 24/7 backup to renewables. But the big problem then is transport. You can't take a wind turbine or solar panels to sea, or not enough solar panels to sea. So the transport sector is a big problem. You can have electric cars, but you can't have electric ships. An electric ship will not cross the Pacific. So that's the problem. So yes, renewables can be used for most things, but certainly not transport at the moment, and I don't see it on the horizon either, apart from Oxyfuel. You couldn't have an electric ship because the Pacific is a long, long way, and you need an incredible amount, like a power station, like amount of power produced by the biggest container ships, so it's just not technically feasible in the near future. But Oxyfuel is feasible. You know, if we did the research, it could be used within the next few years. The ship could capture the CO2, offload it in port, and then it could be processed. So if we could have pure oxygen mixed with fuel, you'd have a much more efficient burn, and the emissions are pure CO2 and water. Well, water's not the problem. You can just put the exhaust to a condenser and that will divide it into water and pure CO2, which you can easily capture because it's not, and with an aircraft it's shot out into the atmosphere, but with a ship it's shot out into the exhaust pipe, so you really can quite easily capture it and process it into various ideas that are out there at the moment and being worked on. The CO2 and water would be all that the exhaust from these engines consists of, and then you can process them both if you wish, for example, to take the water that you collect in a ship's exhaust, and this is part of people's thinking. If that ship docks in a water deprived area like the Canary Islands, you can offload the water, you know, lots of it, because ships produce a lot of water in their exhaust. You can take the CO2 from the exhaust and collect it, pressurize it so it doesn't take up too much space, and then you can offload it in port. And then when you're in port, you can process it into various things that mean that it doesn't get put back into the environment. One thing you can process it into is lime, which can be then spread on lime deprived areas like West Wales and improve the soil. And similarly, the Scottish Highlands used to be full of deciduous trees. All that lime will be spread on the Scottish Highlands, making it more fertile soil, and you can use deciduous trees and regrow them, and they will suck a lot of CO2 out of the atmosphere, so it's a win-win situation. And you have not only sequestrated the CO2 from the ship, you have used it to grow deciduous trees which sequestrate lots more CO2. So it's just a matter of finding clever ways to use the CO2. What you mustn't do is let it back into the atmosphere.